Welcome to Between Two Pastries, everybody. This is Nicole.
Hey everyone, it's Annie.
And welcome back, Annie.
Thank
Welcome back.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, I
cool.
guess we're on video for this one.
And we
So,
are on video.
so we have Alex here as well.
Welcome, Alex.
He'll be joining.
Then we have two great guests today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There might be a burp pretty quick here.
right.
An adult sized.
So our main great guest today is a client of mine, Rick. Rick, I'm going to have you introduce yourself fully, but very happy to have you on today. We have a lot of topics to kind of discuss. One of the main ones we wanted to talk about was body image in particular. Rick went through a pretty significant health crises, I guess you could call it. And I'll have him explain a little bit more. He wrote an amazing book. It's such an easy read. I highly recommend it. Really gives you a really lovely perspective on life and desires and being courageous and bold and really, touching life with everything you have. So I highly recommend the book just for that reason as well. Rick, welcome. Please feel free to talk all about yourself.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you both for having me. It's a pleasure to be here between two pastries. I'm a fan of pastries, so I thought this was going to be a baking podcast, but
That's
but
a
it's
great
great.
idea.
Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah.
No, this is the right place. Nicole, you're right. I've been a client of yours, what, for 5-6 years, something
I
like that.
know it. It's
Feels like been
crazy.
a long time.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Time
I will
flies.
say that I've dropped like between 50 to 60 pounds of fat and gained like 40 or 50 pounds of muscle.
Yes.
So you really helped me quite a bit, and I've been reproportioned thanks to Nicole's plans and work. So I highly recommend going to see Way of Life Nutrition
That's so
if you're in the
sweet.
market. So my name is Rick Czapleski. I live here in Milwaukee. I'm a 27-year, two-time cancer survivor. I was diagnosed when I was in college. I had 70 total radiation treatments. I had 8 months of chemotherapy. And when that's done, what many cancer survivors, myself included, would tell you is you leave the structure of treatment, you get to that final day, they're ringing a bell and there's balloons or however they celebrate that.
Mm.
In my day, it was my mom brought a cheese and sausage platter to the hospital.
That's
Gave
awesome.
it to the nurses.
That's
There wasn't
amazing.
any other fanfare besides the sausage. And that was that. And you leave and you're kind of like, what was this all about? And then you
Mhm.
become a survivor, or you put the cancer treatment behind you and you try to reintegrate yourself into life. And
Mm.
you've changed quite a bit, but the world has really stayed the same. And you're trying to refit into those shoes you were in.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Since that point in time, it's been 27 years. I've done a lot of fun adventures. I've leaned into endurance sports throughout the years and athletics. My son he's going to be 20 at the end of February.
Wow.
He's actually the age now. When I was going through it, that's his age today. So see a lot of me and him and vice versa he's a sophomore at UW La Crosse, and he's also going into kinesiology, nutrition, and physical therapy. So
Oh,
quite
good
a
for
bit
him.
like you guys. Yeah, it's cool.
Good for him.
And yeah, I wrote a book. That book, Better Dirty Than Done, was written for my son. And it's a very intimate, emotional story of me going through cancer. But I didn't want to write a book and have it be like a cancer only type thing. So I put a lot of other things that I've done throughout the years in the book. But when you're reading it, it'll feel like I'm imagining those things as I'm going as you go through it. And then at the end, you realize, wow, this guy really did all these cool things. So yeah, happy to be here and
Well, it's great to have you, Rick. It really
Yeah.
is. And like I said, your book is I mean, it's like a mixed bag, right? Because it's like obviously there's like some real sadness that I know I was feeling going through it. And yet that's like hilarious at the same time. So like I'm laughing. Um, And then I'm like reading the book and sort of like making comments to you. You're not in my living room, but you know, and I'm like, like I didn't know this about you, Rick. What? Um, but yeah, no, it's an awesome read, but I love all the adventures that you went on. And you know, even when you came to me 5-ish years ago or whatever that is, like um you know, you're really an athletic guy. Like you love pushing hard. You love like getting in there and doing cool stuff. Um
Nicole, can I just, real quick with a question? Rick, did you go to Nicole because you were post cancer? Because was it related to cancer nutrition as to why you went and saw Nicole in the first place?
No, actually, those were not related at all.
Okay.
I had gone through a divorce and put on a lot of weight, and I was really having a rough time just cracking the science on my diet. And
Okay.
I didn't know what to do, and my physician recommended her, and I'm glad he
Okay.
did. And that's one of those things where if you need somebody to, you know, I needed to outsource that knowledge, and now I've got an expert helping me. So that's
Yeah.
why.
that's awesome.
That's
awesome.
cool. Very nice.
Yeah.
There.
So because we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about you know, really hitting on that body image piece, you know, you you talk about yourself. I mean, you know, I have to laugh sometimes the way you sort of like describe yourself and things like this, um but I am kind of wondering just in general, you know, what that felt like from you from being diagnosed in general and just sort of that experience of how, you know, your body did shift, even how it shifted in performance, right? You know, like you're going to feel everything. So it's kind of like, what was that? What was that like for you?
Well, at that age, I was coming out of high school, and I was really athletic in high school. I wrestled, I played football. I like to run and lift and do all those things. And I participated in 3 state tournaments, so I got pretty good at the sports that I played. So a lot of my self-worth, self-image at age 19 was tied up in my image of myself as an athlete and of my body as being incredibly strong.
Mhm.
Nicole, believe it or not, I was around 9 to 10% body fat at one point in time.
I do believe
So,
that you're just a rock in general. So yeah, I believe that.
so, so what ended up happening is when I was diagnosed, I began radiation, and I had radiation in college. The hospital was located right next to my university, and after I went through all that, I decided, or my family, we decided that I could stay in college and get radiation at the hospital directly next to campus. And so what I would do is I'd wake up in the morning, I would go and go down and go to classes and everything. Then I would have lunch. I would return to my dorm room and put my stuff away. Then I would walk over to the hospital alone to get radiation. And then I would come back to the dorms and throw up.
Ugh.
And when you're a freshman in a college dorm and you're throwing up, people are like, "Yeah, this guy had a lot to drink. Way to go!"
Right.
You're getting like a cheering section sometimes, and it didn't. It unusually that was not a red flag, or it didn't stand out at all.
It's
Um,
something odd.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but I was doing that because I got sick, and then I would go back to my room, maybe try to eat a light dinner if I could get the food down,
Mm,
and go to sleep.
mm.
And so what that did to my body and my body image at the time is I went from like 200 pounds, 10% body fat to like 150
Mm.
on my frame, which looks really
Oh yeah.
very
Yeah.
skull,
Yeah.
like emaciated. I didn't know what to do because I could not hold any food down when I was
Mm,
getting radiated. I got it basically radiated from belt to neck,
mm,
from here, the belt line.
mm.
So when you're getting all that done, I mean, you're nauseous nonstop. You can't eat anything. And my diet at the time consisted of a couple Ensure drinks,
Mm.
watermelon, and maybe some macaroni and cheese. And my advice to people going through like a traumatic experience like that is whatever you can get down is valuable. I mean,
That's right.
avoiding food is not the answer, but whatever. I mean, as goofy as it sounds, you know, those like watermelons that are like a circle. I
Yeah.
was eating like one of those a day because that's all I could eat.
Hmm.
Uh, and unfortunately, that was doing the trick.
Mm.
It was, and then when radiation was done, what a main side effect of radiation is you're completely fatigued. Like I was sleeping, not exaggerating, 16 to 20 hours a day after that. You know, you're sleeping it off, I guess. But and then my parents, like I was living with them, they'd wake me up like instead of waking me up at like 4 p.m., they'd wake me up at 3 and then just kind of like dial it back so I could get a little bit of stamina heading back to college the next
Yeah.
day.
Wow.
So
How did you
Wow.
manage going to classes? You know, I mean, wasn't that tough?
you just do it, period. My what I wanted more than anything as a college freshman when I was diagnosed the first time was to be a normal, regular college student. I told no one. I told my boss and I told one of my friends, her name is Jennifer. Those are the only people who knew. And
Unreal.
I'd go to class. I lost my voice. I mean, I had burns on my neck. Hair was falling out in the back of my head. I didn't care. I didn't tell anybody anything. I just kept going to class. And yeah, eventually the semester ended and it was hard doing it alone, but I think it would be even harder in my mind at the time. It was harder for me to tell anyone. And anytime I tried to like broach the subject, people couldn't empathize. I mean, not
Mhm.
that peer group. It just wasn't available. And in the 90s, there was no information or support groups or internet or phone or hotlines or any of that. So I was doing this completely alone. And that's one of the reasons now that I speak to crowds that I try to be involved with cancer is so no one walks alone. That's the name of
Mm.
my business
Oh,
is
yeah.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that I can't, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. How long was the whole thing for?
So I had cancer twice. That was the first time I was radiated while I was in college. And then when that was over, I went back after that summer of sleeping. I went back and it was 18 months later that I started to have some back pain. I went to the emergency room in the same hospital. They thought it was, well, your mattress is too soft or,
Mm.
something like that. So my mom was very persistent with you need an x-ray. So I got an x-ray that led to a CT scan, guided needle biopsy of my back. And I was told, hey, you've got cancer, it's back.
Mm.
So
And
this
again,
time,
yeah.
yeah, the first time it was kind of an ignorance is bliss and I was just maintaining status quo. This time it was serious. I had to drop out of college
Oh,
and
yeah.
I had 5 weeks to go in the semester and they said this it's not moving fast. You can continue with the semester, you can finish it off, and then the start of the spring semester, you're gonna have to stay home and get chemo.
Mm.
I had chemo at a clinic that was right outside of St. Luke's Hospital here in town.
Mhm.
Wow.
And it's no the clinic's gone. It was absorbed by the Vince Lombardi Cancer Center. It's like an administrative building, but the building is there. So
Wow.
what I did that last 5 weeks of college, there were some really unusual happenings. Like one of my professors, I told her, I have to leave. I have to miss your class a couple times because I'm getting some scans
Yeah.
and I need to get tests and blood work or whatever. I'm just going to have to miss it. She's like very understanding. Okay. So then, like a week later, I walk into class and people are like, what? Who is this
Mhm.
guy? And the woman sitting next to me says, what are you doing here? I said, what do you mean? I'm here to go into class.
Old.
She goes, she told everybody you had cancer and you were gonna
Oh,
die.
no.
And now you're here. I'm like, what are you
My
talking about?
gosh.
It's like,
Gee.
it's just there's just so many
That sounds
weird,
like a
like,
HIPAA thing now. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think they would do that.
Shouldn't.
I mean, it's the 90s, things were a little bit different. And but that's what we went through, and that was just part of the story. And so,
Did that
um,
help that now it was out a little bit more? I mean, did that help you with just feeling more comfortable talking about it?
no, it made it worse. It
It made
made
it
me
worse.
very, I mean, in this era, I mean, people were looking at me like a pariah. And
Mm.
so it was kind of a positive in one regard. That last 5 weeks, I was so ticked off. I was just fuming angry that I had to drop out of college.
Yeah.
And that's a process. When you when you drop out of college, you have to get all these signatures.
Mhm.
And one of the more amusing stories was um I had to get a signature from a dean to get like one of my mom found some correspondence classes for me to take. He to get him to approve it, he I had to get a signature. Now you think, all right, this would be no brainer. So I go in there, I'm explaining to him the whole thing. And he kind of like looks at my paper and he goes, I don't really think this class description quite fits. It's pretty close, but I don't know if I can sign this. And I said, I might be dead in like 6 months. Can you make an exception?
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, you know what? Yes, I can. And it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just to see like as
Perspective.
an,
Hello.
yeah, and as like an adult now, thinking about him then, dude, just
Yeah.
it's just interesting that writing this book now, I wrote the book over COVID. I didn't write it when I was going through it, but having the perspective of the people who are like him involved along the way, just to think about like as an adult, why would you do it like that?
Yeah.
Just
I hate to say this, but it reminds me of that whole concept of like kids needing to have snacks in school and teachers not allowing it.
Yes.
Like it's just stupid
Right.
things
Yeah.
where it's like, how does this
What
affect
it-
you? Why does this
correct.
matter to you why would you say no? Do you know what I mean? Like it seems so silly as something that was experienced 10, 20, 30 years ago. And now looking back, it's like, what were people thinking?
I know it's
You know?
Oh, wild.
just wild. I just So I studied, so I was so angry that last 5 weeks. I studied so hard, and my goal was if I was gonna die, I wanted to have a really good GPA. So if somebody went back and looked at my transcript, they would have seen that I went out really strong, and I ended up getting a 4.0. That was the only time I ever
Mm.
got that in college because I was just possessed by getting that. I was
Yeah.
so angry. And then I dropped out. Then I'm like, now it's like, all right, I'm walking my stuff out of my building. I was an RA. So
Mhm.
to see an RA leaving was like, wait, what's this guy doing? And then it just kind of like came out, right? Like people are starting to know, but pre-email, internet, all that stuff, I moved back and didn't really have any way to connect with anyone. So I
Mm.
did a lot of this again by myself.
Mhm.
I had my parents, but they worked during the day. So I'd see them like in the morning and at night and everything. And my grandma and my mom would drive me to treatment. But when it came to food during that time, chemo really jacks up your taste buds. Like you have open mouth sores, your mouth tastes like copper, metal, or
Mhm.
something,
Mhm.
just bad tastes. So the things that really goofed me up was if I smelled chicken,
Mm.
chicken soup, any type of meal, Kentucky Fried, whatever, I wanted to immediately vomit. It was
Mm.
bad. It was like, like if one night my mom tried to like sneak like hey, we're gonna make a chicken casserole because we're sick of eating, we're not sick of this, right? So she tried to sneak that in with my dad, and I'm like, immediately smelled it. It was like, no,
Oh, did you throw up?
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
all the time. It was
Yeah.
just like retching, like
Yeah.
it's horrible. And
Like unavoidable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but what got me through chemo was round steak,
Oh, wow.
like
Yeah.
a cheap, like
Yeah.
almost like the skirt steak with the eye of round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ate that like 4 or 5
Mm.
days.
It's
Oh,
leaner.
nice.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, that
And it's
was really good.
calories.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. But there's a
Yeah.
part of me, like, I often wonder, like, does the body kind of know though too? Because like I think of that and I think like all that iron and, just that really good, and you gotta wonder sometimes, like the body like knows what it
Yeah, it
needs.
knows what it needs. I mean, I know
Yeah.
that sometimes sounds really wackadoodly, but really
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were ordering that by like the tens of pounds and
Yeah,
prepping it differently. You know, it's a slow cooker versus stir
Oh,
fry,
man.
all this
That's
stuff. That's what we were
crazy.
working with. And it worked. And, you know, it was the one thing that like cut through all the sensory deprivation. Like it smelled just right,
Hmm.
tasted just right. Like it was perfect.
I wonder
And
why. Yeah.
interestingly, yeah, it's weird, right? So
Yeah.
I've looked on like I participate in a lot of different cancer boards and, you know, hey, you know, other survivors saying, hey, what worked for me? And
Hmm.
I've thrown that on the board and a lot of people are like, yeah, me too, me too.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing this, round steak and chemo, it's a good it's like a wine pairing.
Yeah.
But not one I'd want, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and treatment sucks.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
what ended up the body image story I have for treatment that I think is relevant to a lot of people, and I'd like to tell you guys, is
Mhm.
when you start chemo, one of the biggest symptoms or biggest byproducts is bloating, like really big bloating, like the blueberry veruca salt girl in Willy Wonka bloating.
No, sure.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's awful. And
Puffy,
so
yeah.
as somebody who at this age I was 20, I turned 21 during my treatments, but I was 20 and I was looking in the mirror and I was just picturing myself, you know, as an 18-year-old when I was wrestling and playing sports and stuff.
Mm,
I looked so good. And now I looked like a whale. Like I just like, wow. Like I was just so mad. Like, you've got to do something about this, and just screaming in my own head. And then,
mm,
you know, I'd look at it from the side and look from
Mhm.
the side, and I'm looking at, and then out of nowhere, and this is like a divine intervention,
yeah.
a voice, really, this is like,
Yeah.
there's a voice said to me, and this, I'm not making this up. This is
I
true.
believe it.
A voice said, "This is not the time to worry what you look like. Your body's
Love
doing
it. I
everything
love
it
it.
can to heal."
I love hearing that. Like,
I
yes,
think
I want
everyone
everyone
hears
to
that
hear
voice.
that.
Yeah,
Gosh.
but it's a matter of listening to it or not and really
Yes.
understanding why you're getting that signal.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like a bolt of lightning. It was out of nowhere. It says, and in my you know, your body is the arena and the combatant in the fight. It's doing both. It's
There you go.
fighting and it's
Hmm.
holding in the chemicals.
Yep.
You know, and this voice, you know, with some counsel is explaining, you're healing now. Don't worry
Mm,
about what you look like. You're in the process of healing.
mm,
And the thing is, I don't have any photos from that time. I didn't let anybody take any pictures. This is before
sure.
ubiquitous photography. And I mean, I think the one photo that I have was my parents took me to Disney, and almost similar to a Make-A-Wish thing. Like, this is the last, this is it. And we're
Mm,
gonna just do one more fun thing. And I'm just like, massive. But that voice like has stuck with me. So I'm I would go to races, I would go to
hmm.
swims in a Speedo. I
Hmm.
don't care what I look like there.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's awesome.
blow away half that swimming field and looking like this. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't need to be looking, I don't need to look like the cover of a magazine or
Hmm.
Instagram, any of that stuff. I'm more concerned about, here's the gift that I received, this body, and I want to be
100%.
able to pump out as much, you know, sensory endurance, what all those tactile things I want for myself, versus I'm gonna admonish my own body for that. And
I love that, Rick. That is incredible. That's what I want for everyone.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that is what is so that's just I just love that. And the cool part though is that I am wondering if this was the time then that you were like, I'm going to do all of these things. This is when I'm going to do all these events. This is when I'm like, I'm doing this. I've always wanted to do this. I'm going and I'm doing this. And again, we're talking about regardless of the training or lack thereof, right? I mean, you talk about that. It's just like, hell, I'm doing this, right? How you look, blah, 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 all the things that people can get really wrapped up in. And you're just like, no, I'm doing it. I'm putting my best foot forward. I'm going to experience this. I'm letting go of the outcome. The outcome is simply that I finish. So the beauty is so much more happened with that, with
Yeah.
the body you were in,
Right.
with
Well,
the
Nicole,
body you were in.
so
Yeah,
many
when I-
people choose to sit in the corner in the dark because of what their body looks like and their circumstance instead of just going and living life.
Mm-hmm.
And how much happier were you being able to live life regardless of your circumstance? You know,
yeah,
could that
tho-
have made your circumstance better in a sense and gotten you through more treatment, you know, versus sitting in the corner?
in the immediacy, it was an immediate, abrupt reprioritization of what's important at that moment. And it was no longer about self-image. This is survival. And you had to survive, you got to treat yourself well inside. And that voice, if you're constantly hammering yourself over what you look like, that's totally counterproductive to healing. And my body was in a physical healing state when that happened. And that happened after my first or second chemo. I think it was after my first. And it was from that point forward, it was like, free pass, man. Like, screw it. This is what I look like. I'm throwing it out there. I'm going to show up and fight, and
Love it.
who cares? And then the thing that I really wanted most of all when I was going through treatment was to graduate from college, to
Mhm.
see other people, getting wasted all the time and smoking and doing drugs and stuff, and, trashing their bodies, where I'm fighting tooth and nail just to survive.
Yeah.
And those people were going to make it, and I wasn't. Made me so, it still
Mhm.
makes me angry. It just,
Mm.
that to me was my big game changer. Was in terms of healthy habits, healthy
Mhm.
ish eating, very,
Yeah.
very little alcohol, that kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
and those habits starting then, one of the that Dr. Peter Adia's book, I don't know if I'm saying that wrong, Outlive. One of the
Mhm.
things he talks about is your health span and your lifespan. Your lifespan is from birthday to the day you die. That's your
Mhm.
tombstone. And your health span is the point in time that you're healthy throughout your life. So for me, my health span has a 3-year blip. Like, it's below my lifespan. Like, I was
Mhm.
unhealthy, unable to do what I wanted. And I don't want to ever go back. So the habits that I do now might sacrifice pleasure in the moment, but when I'm later in life, I want to be ambulatory, and I don't want to be dealing with a chronic condition. So I'm not trying to set myself up now for that. And I think that's where healthy eating and lifestyle comes into play.
Yeah.
But that
That's
healthy eating doesn't necessarily mean thin and
correct.
diets and not eating this or that or
Mhm.
whatever. You know, that's
Mhm.
the piece that really people can't seem to grab onto.
Right. Right.
You know?
Right. So,
This is going to be something I talk about with you, Nicole, in
uh-huh.
my next appointment, is the
Yeah.
concept of being metabolically healthy,
Great.
and the 5 markers that
Ooh, she's an
they,
expert at that.
I can't wait.
I think we did a presentation on that metabolic stuff. didn't
We
we?
did.
Yeah, she's an expert. I was a sideshow for that one.
That's hilarious. No. Oh gosh, that's so funny. Cool, cool. Uh, cool. So again, your book, I love the detail that you get into and the creativity of how you chose to write these experiences in your book. But again, we have so many athletes who listen to our podcast, and I just think that they would appreciate, kind of hearing a little bit about, again, here you are in whatever body that is at the time, and you had some very, very important missions that you thought, I'm just going to do. And I'm just wondering if you could just, um, you know, bullet point a few of those and maybe the whys behind them, because they're all different types of events and things.
Yeah, that's so. If you want like a bullet pointed resume, I'll tell you what I've done, and then I'll tell you a couple stories about these events. So 4 years after I completed treatment, it was my cancerversary is July 31st, 1996. 4 years, July 31st, 2000, I climbed Mount Rainier, and my mission in these events was to get back what was taken from me. I mean, what do you want the most, right? You want what you've lost, right? Because
There
you
you
like,
go.
I
Mhm.
can't believe I lost that. It was so great when I had. To me, it was that, and I also I wanted to create an athletic resume that was diverse. Like I'm not just a good runner
Yeah.
or one thing. Like I wanted to do a bunch of stuff in different disciplines um, to say, look at, I've done all of these things. So it started with Mount Rainier and climbing with Rainier mountaineering. And then, then the second foray, which was running slash swimming, started with me splitting my pants. I used to live in Sacramento. My former wife and I are both from Wisconsin. We would travel from Sacramento to Wisconsin, especially over the holidays. And when we were here, we ate with no filter, with complete reckless abandon, cookies, sweets, whatever. We were total pigs for like 2 weeks. And so I went berserk over a Christmas break, and she says, go to the grocery store and pick up some meat or whatever. So I go to the grocery store, and as I'm getting out of the car, I like split my Dockers, and I got like, oh shit. So now I'm put the jacket around my waist. I go in there. I'm like, this, you got to do something. You just went nuts for 2 weeks and now you can't fit your clothes. So, so I started running, and then running led to swimming. I swam competitively when I was like in third to fourth grade, way young. But what that did was I wasn't like a superstar or anything like that. But what that did was when you learn a sport like swimming or like golf or one of these motion technique driven sports, and you learn the technique at a young age, you have that in your body. So I was a good swimmer still, even in my 30s. I had swam for 20 years or whatever. So I start swimming, and everything just started to escalate. My 10 laps turned into 20, turned into 40. I'm doing a mile. Now I'm swimming a mile and a half in the pool. And I'm like, I love this. It's like peace. I'm just working everything out. It's calm, the water, everything.
Yeah.
It's just calm, right? So I signed up for this swim called the Shark Fest, which was to swim from Alcatraz. And I went down to the Bay Area. This is like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive from my house. And I had never swam open water. And I swam with this team. I got hooked up, and it was like it's like they're still there actually. You can just drop in. It's called Water World Swim, San Francisco Bay. You drop in, they give you a briefing, and then you swim in there in like this aquatic park area, which is this big cove at the end of Hyde Street. So I got in the water with them, and I'm swimming, and I'm not the slowest person. There's people right next to me. And I swam like a mile, and I got out of there, and I said, I think that's the longest open water swim I've ever done. And they're like, really? And they're like, yeah. They're like, well, you signed up for Shark Fest? I said, yeah, I'm give it a shot. And they're like, all right. So they said, they're upselling me now. They're like, this thing they called an Alcatraz Clinic. You can come here and you get in the boat, and then you swim. They take you out to the island. You practice jumping in the water, then you swim a little bit, then you get in the boat and you do all this stuff. That sounds great. Okay, so I go home and I sign up. So I return to the Bay a month later, overcast day, there's a marine layer, 2 to 3 foot waves. It is choppy. I'm like,
Yeah. Holy moly.
so I meet Coach Pedro, he may be the world record holder, over 500 Alcatraz crossings. And it's me and this coach and a couple from Washington or something. So, all right, now we're in the boat, and we're going out there, and and they're talking, and the coach says to me, I'm going to be directly next to you the entire time. Just, make sure you're looking for me, and stay connected, and we're going to be fine. Jump out of the boat, and there's 3 foot waves. So you'd swim up, take a breath, turn, there's no water, and it'd slam you like in the face. I'm like, this is fun. Like,
Yeah.
this is kind of getting beat up out here. This is like, it was almost like a wrestling practice back in the day. I'm like, I'm really kind of into this. You're like up and down, and So I'm with this guy, and this guy is the coolest, calmest, but he's hell bent to cross.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'm just swimming right on him, right on his hip the whole time. We swim up to Fort Mason. The current was so bad that we missed our beach by like half a mile. Like it pushed us that
Oh,
far.
wow. Mm-hmm.
So we're like 100 yards from shore, and he's like, okay, let's get in the boat. I'm like, I swam all this way, and that's where the beach is. Can I just go to the beach? He goes, all right, hurry up. So I swim to the beach and back, all that.
Yeah.
So I get back in the boat, and the couple is in there. Like they weren't with us. They were ahead of us. And they're like huddled up, like shivering. And I'm like, hey, that was cool. And the guy says to me, or he says to the group, that is one of the top 2 or 3 hardest crossings I have ever had. And I go, come on, you say that every time. And the couple's like, you have no idea. I'm like, I'm like, well, if I can make that. So then I ended up doing that swim later, and it was vastly easier.
Oh,
It was
wow.
harder. And
Yeah.
I got hooked. And then the big race that I did in San Francisco is called Swim Around the Rock, where you start on the beach, swim to the island, go around it, and then you come back. So it's like between 3 and 4 miles. So I did that one.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was all like a quest just to heal. It was,
Yeah.
I had so much trash inside of me, just this energy and anger and depression and everything.
Yeah.
I was just looking for a lifeline. And I'm telling you, if you're feeling that way, sports, these long, grinding, intimate, personal journees,
Mhm.
when you're out there and you're swimming 2 miles, or it's like a mile and a half, roughly mile and a quarter, depending on how you do it, from Alcatraz to the beach. And it takes, let's say, 30 to 40 minutes, maybe a
Mhm.
little longer. When you're swimming and you're just looking at the Golden Gate Bridge and you're just counting your strokes, there's something that's very like rhythmic and soothing about that
Mhm.
everything just like disappears.
That's
Mhm.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think again, getting back to the whole point here, you're doing this, you're having this, really almost spiritual experience, and this, you're kind of getting all this like good feelings about, what you're doing physically, and you're still in that body.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's like my point, is that we can experience this tremendous, feeling of accomplishment, of, all the good stuff that people think that they need to look a particular way, act a particular way, eat a
Yeah.
particular way to achieve. You're doing this. Then you're doing it, and you're supporting your body, and you're not thinking about like, um, oh, this my body, I've got to like eat weird, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're just like, no, you're present, you're in your body fully and completely. You're saying, it doesn't matter. I'm doing this thing anyway. And not only that, you're like blowing other people that look different than you, right? If, and who other people would think would be doing better than you, out of the water. And
Mhm.
that is just so freaking
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was never, yeah, I think where you hit the skids on that is when you start comparing yourself. And as an athlete, everybody compares themselves to the clock, right?
Yep.
Like my time, what's my run time? And
Right.
I got to hit splits. And yeah, I never did that. Like, as funny as it sounds, I don't even bike with an odometer. I just bike. Like, I just do it total zen. Like, I have a really nice road bike. No, I don't care. It's not about the time, the distance, or whatever. It's about how good of a time you're having doing it. And it's like all that other stuff kind of comes. Like when I did the Swim Around the Rock race, I did it twice. The person who won that race was an Olympian. Like for like training, it was the '08 Olympics, and there were some countries that sent a couple Olympians there. I was competing against them. Now, if you say, wow, I didn't beat the guy who won it, I didn't make the podium, but the Olympian won it. I mean, that's that's absurd, right? I'm
Yeah.
just a guy who sit behind a desk.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you what, I didn't take last. I took 31st out of 35 people.
That's
And I
awesome.
made it. A couple people withdrew. And it makes me proud that somebody who is like a college swimmer from Stanford pulled out, but I didn't, and that's the cool stuff about sports is you're only there for you. It's you're your own competitor.
Yep.
It's the person in the mirror. I mean, that's it. And sometimes it's not about like the time, it's just hanging on,
Yeah.
right? Climbing a mountain is not about, nobody cares. Nobody's ever asked me how many minutes or hours did it take you to climb Mount Rainier, Mount Shasta?
Sure.
It's all about like,
You did that.
what did it look like? Like,
Yeah.
what did it look like up there?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, like the fun sensory, like what does the bay taste like?
Yes.
But I
And
do you think people don't ask, like you do Boston, they're going to ask your time or where you qualified. But when you do things that are out of people's scope, like swim to Alcatraz and back or climb a mountain, people can't conceptualize that. So they can't,
That makes
other
sense.
athletes, right? Because that's generally out of a swimmer's scope, a biker's scope, a runner's scope. They're doing the standard because they don't just look in the mirror and
Yeah.
think about themselves and how they can improve themselves. It's all this external stuff. Or if they are internalizing it, it's not in a good way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's aggravating as an athlete and B as a practitioner. And so wonderful that you're having an experience where people are asking you about the scenery, what it felt like, things like that, because that is what's most important. And
Yeah.
that it kills me again to hear, because all I'm thinking about is, I bet if you did the San Francisco Marathon, people would ask what your time was. Like
I did do the San Francisco Marathon.
Yeah.
And my time was like 5:45.
And I'm sure people will, because athletes can, I've done a
Yeah.
marathon,
They
therefore I
get
can
that then.
compare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's silly
Mhm.
to think about that. But unfortunately, people
Yes.
don't have fun with their sports anymore.
Right.
It's for
Right.
weight loss. It's for some sort of weird comparison. And to say, I
Yep.
did, it's really kind of aggravating.
Yeah.
That's a soapbox.
Yeah, briefly, my Boston story is I did not qualify for Boston. The way I got into Boston, I worked for Hewlett Packard in the 2000s, and HP was an equipment sponsor of the Boston Marathon.
Oh, nice.
And they had an employee sweepstakes for entries. They were like 75, and I entered it. I completed the local marathon, CIM in Sacramento, and that qualified me to enter this Boston lottery. So I entered, and they picked me, and I had a bib 26762 in 2009, and I ran Boston, and I beat 200 people.
That's amazing.
I beat 200 people. I finished like 26,700 something. The Boston Marathon, when it's over, has like a magazine it sends out with all the times. My time is on the last page. When I finished, a friend of mine likes this. When they finished, a guy in a hamburger costume passed me on Boylston and beat me. I tell you what, I had more fun than every single person on that course.
I bet you did
Yeah,
though, Rick.
100%.
Great. It was so fun. I had my name sign. I'm pointing to my name and people are screaming. I'm just high-fiving like hundreds of people in a row. I mean, it was so fun. I mean, that's one of the best days of my life. And it's, if you go into that saying, I think I ran Boston in like 5 hours, 20 minutes or something like that in that neighborhood. If I would have said, I need to break wait, did I say that right? 5 hours, 20 minutes. If I need to break 5 hours or this is a bust, that would have, like, how counterproductive is that?
That's right.
I mean, you do marathons you want to do a good time, but it's clear when you're a marathon runner in the early portions of it, that if you're not feeling it or there's something just off, like if your splits are just 5, 10, 15 seconds off, and you're going to have to go to like an uncomfortable pace early, you're not going to negative split and you're going to have a rough time hitting your target. So it's like, I did that, and a friend of mine gave me this advice, and he's a Western States finisher. And the advice is to scrap the watch and have fun, and just turn the watch upside down. Don't worry about, are you making it, and just interact with the people, just goof around while you're out there. And at the end, if you get the medal and you make it, that's the most important thing. And in a race like that with, I mean, tens of thousands of people, just
Right.
so many goofy characters and
Mhm.
kissing girls at Wellesley. And one
Mhm.
guy on Heartbreak Hill, a guy in a Speedo, like flies up the hill, like burns right past him, takes like a hard right into it must be like a frat house or a college house right on that part, and did a keg stand. I'm like, this is awesome. That's so funny. So
Well, I love it. I mean, those are just awesome experiences, Rick. And you know, we covered a lot of ground today in general, but as we're kind of like wrapping things up, I feel like, do you have, I mean, I feel like you've said so many things that I hope, you know, listeners are kind of, you know, listening and absorbing and taking a little bit to heart. But, you know, do you have kind of an overall message that you kind of want to send out to people, you know, based on even your experience and what you actually gained from your experience?
there's just so many different angles to that and so many things to say, but I think you never count yourself out.
Mhm.
And, when you're in the middle of something like chemotherapy, don't ask why, don't do the what if thing, don't try to make sense of it. You're not going to. There are no answers to why other than because. There are no answers to what if. There's no alternative reality that if cancer or whatever difficult traumatic situation didn't happen, I'd be this way. Like if you can give that up and let it go, that's going to take a lot of burden off of you. And then when you're ready to heal, take action. For me, the biggest inspiration for me was Lance Armstrong.
Mhm.
In 1996, there was nothing, right? And then this guy comes along and is trashing the bike and just, I mean, he's so brash and he's on Capitol Hill and he's saying the word cancer. Those are big, big things. And I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to just turn the page and take action is the main thing. Like just jump in, man. And what can go wrong? I mean, you will not be successful. You will not run a 5K if you don't get off the couch, right? Or you will never run a marathon if you're stuck in the 10K half marathon rut. And take it, try it. What's the worst that can happen? You don't finish, but you learn. And then you
Mhm.
retool and go back, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, sports have injuries. You just got to keep making these comebacks. And if you do, you take a look back and you're like, wow, I did some cool stuff. Like, you're not doing these things to like brag or like to pile up a bunch of accomplishments. You're doing it for fun. Like, to me, sports and getting out on the road and living healthy that's fun. Like, I enjoy listening to my music and, being outdoors and meeting other people who are doing the same thing. Like, all those little universal things that kind of come together to make these things happen. It's a great time. So,
Mhm. That's awesome.
go for it. And if you're a serious athlete, my challenge to you is to do a bunch of different stuff. Don't just do I'm on my 120th marathon. Have you ever done a century ride? No. Well, try that. Diversify. Go climb a mountain. Go jump in a pool. Do some other wild stuff. It's fun. Like that. I was telling this is a side in between two pastries. If we do a tangent here, one of the stories I was telling a friend of mine was right after I climbed Mount Rainier, I was in good like climbing shape. So they did one of those climb for air events in
Yes. Yeah.
Dallas. So all these, it was funny because there were all these like trainer looking dudes, like they were wearing like weight belts and they're
Wearing
like
weight belts. It's
yeah,
Yeah.
funny.
like or whatever it really were. And so like these people like they start this event and they're like go and these trainers are like "Grr." So they they're flying up the stairs and I just started like walking. So I climbed that thing 8 times in just under 2 hours.
Hmm.
And these trainer guys like burned rubber once, then they were sitting like in the party room or whatever. Like I'm like, and then they announced, hey, these. I walked in at the very end. They're like, hey, this guy just did it 8 times, and those guys are like, huh? Like that guy?
It's amazing. It's so
It's
awesome.
just, it's, you
You're
know,
like, yeah, dude, that's what this body gets you.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
it's just consistency. It's just, keep it cool and
It's so
just show
amazing.
up, and
It's
just.
awesome, Rick. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It's the truth. Show up. Show up and surprise
Show
them
up,
all,
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we always like to ask our guests too if you have a favorite food. I think I know what it is, but
Oh no. Do I have a favorite food? It changes. Ugh. I wish you would have briefed me for this.
no, it's off the cuff. It's the first thing that popped into your brain.
Oh boy. Pizza.
I
go with
knew it. I knew it. Of course it is.
It has to be. That's pizza, French fries, those are the best. Not
Yeah.
kale.
Not every day, but doggone it. I mean, like Y East Pizza, which is
Oh,
close to my house. God, are they good?
Yeah.
Any
So shout out
pizza.
to them.
Cool.
You like it, Annie?
I love pizza.
Yeah.
I can
Where's
eat
your guys'
pizza every
favorite
day.
pizza place?
Oh, I like Jets.
Oh, where's
Like
that?
their deep dish. We go to the one, it's
It's a chain.
by
Mhm.
Kohl's, right? Like Kohl's department store. There's one right in there. If you order
Like-
online, you get like 20% off.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
expensive,
cool.
but yeah.
Is it like, is that what, 124th and North
Yeah,
or?
and
where?
North.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, Jets Pizza
Alright.
is super good. They're like we get a deep dish and then like their regular is good too. But
Oh,
if you're gonna
yeah.
get deep dish, like you gotta go for it, you
Yeah.
know? Like, you
Yeah.
gotta
It's heavy, but it's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's so good. You can
Hey,
get by
Annie-
with like that nice one square and it's like
Oh, yeah.
this is good.
Postpartum moms are entitled to any food they want.
Yeah,
That's-
it's true. I'm hungry all the time.
Yeah.
About you, Nicole, where's your go-to?
Well, again, like I can't do cheese, but I'll have like a bite of like my husband's whenever he gets it because I love it too, like love it. But he loves Jets as well.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh,
So
Two for Jets. All right.
yeah, yeah.
it's
Well,
good.
thanks so much for being here. We are going to put all of your information into our show notes, so please check that out. Feel free to contact Rick, whether for a high five or question, or you want to book him to speak at an event that you might be having. And
I'm
also,
gonna pick up your book too.
yeah, make sure you check out
Yeah.
his book as well. We'll put the link in there so you can take a peek at that. And yeah, so thanks again, Rick, for being here. We so appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick.
Awesome.